Welcome to Coding Adventures, friends. In this episode, we are exploring the built-in assets from the CodeGuppy.com platform. More precisely, we're going to look at these built-in assets for building video games, such as sprites, music and sound effects, and background images. So in this episode, we are just exploring them, and in a later episode, we're going to just use them for building our own games. So let's get started. Alright, so we are here in the code editor, and you probably noticed by now that but on the left toolbar here, named action bar, there are certain icons here, like first one is quick hints that we used last time just to inspect the documentation that comes with the platform. But the other icons here, they are applicable, they are for opening toolbars with assets for building games and other fun applications. The first one is for backgrounds, the other one is for sprites, and these are actually quite interesting animated sprites. And the last one here is for music and sound effects. Okay, so let's play a little bit with these assets to see how easy or difficult it is to use them in our JavaScript programs. So let's start first with the sprites. And I'm actually zooming out a little bit. And we'll just browse through the list of sprites. To use them is just as easy as browsing them. We look at these sprites. These are the first tab here are characters for a video game perhaps, and these are the most interesting sprites, and we'll select one of these in a second, but let's browse the other tabs as well. Here we can find items for decor, so basically if we want to add a cactus or a tree, perhaps in a jumping game. Here we find items, collectible items, various symbols, and tiles to build the background layers of a platformer game perhaps. But as I mentioned, these are far beyond this current lesson. In the current lesson, we'll just explore how easy it is to use the sprites, the most basic usage of sprites. And couldn't be much easier than just finding the sprite that we prefer. Let's pick this plane here and drag and drop it into the code. And that's it. That's it. Let me zoom in a little bit and notice what's happened. In this moment, the editor placed this command inside and looks pretty similar to the other commands that we saw the other days, like the circle command. So it's called this time sprite, and between round parentheses has 4 parameters here. The first one is a string, and by name of it, we can hint that this is basically the sprite that we want to display, and the other numbers looks like coordinates, and I'm gonna tell you what this number is in a second. So let's click play and see if this is a valid code that we can execute. And it is. We have a plane on our canvas. See how it is it was to just use that sprite, and this plane is even animated. The propeller is spinning here, and we didn't have to do anything. Just drag and drop that command into the editor here. And let me actually grab my notebook really quick here, because I want to just go over this command a little bit. It's pretty important to understand these parameters. So I have my notebook here, and I'm gonna switch to it, and let me write it down. So the command to praise a sprite, it's simply called sprite. And within the parentheses, we have 4 parameters. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's understand what these parameters are. The first one is a string and can be plain here. The second and third one are actually the coordinates where we want to display these particular sprites. And when we just drag and drop an sprite from the toolbar there in the code, the editor automatically writes 400, 300. But don't worry, we're gonna play with these numbers ourselves just in a second. And the last number here, which is currently 0.5, this is a zoom level. So basically the first one is the actual sprite. So this is the sprite name. These are the X and Y coordinates of sprite. And basically this is the zoom level. Okay, and the sprite is the command itself. Also, if we switch in the code here a little bit, here on the paper, notice I wrote plane, but if we go in the code, notice that it says plane.fly. So let's see what's happening if we just write plane like I put on the paper there. We still have the same plane, but the reason it's the editor placed a dot there inside is because some sprites may have multiple animations inside, such as if we hover the mouse over this one, we can see in this list it says idle, jump, run, slide. Those are various animations, and we also have a small snippet of code here that shows how to change animations, or in case of plane, basically we have the animation fly, shoot, and crash. So by default, apparently the editor, when we drag and drop the sprite into the code, just said plane.fly just to select the first animation, but if we don't select any animation, it will appear the first one in the list. And alternatively, we can say here plane.fly. Okay, so it's pretty easy and convenient. One single command, and we can bring from the palette whatever sprite we have there and we intend, and we can bring it at any coordinates and in a certain size that we want. So let's play a little bit with this one to better understand the effect, okay? So let me put this notebook down here and run again the code. And let's play a little bit with those coordinates. So what about having this 100, 100? Think of this like the center of that circle. So see, the plane moves at that coordinates. And then perhaps we can have 500 and 100 and moves here. So see how easy it is. It's much easier than that card that we draw with code, but we are cheating a little bit here because this is a built-in asset. It still looks great for the games, so we're gonna use it nevertheless. But in order to learn programming, we have to do also the small work and actually code ourselves some some drawings. But anyway, it's so much fun to play with the sprites, and if you want, I encourage you to go around and play. Let's also put one here instead of the last number. This is such a huge plane. Perhaps we should put it a little bit down, perhaps at 600, and let's try here 300. Oh. Oh, all right, so this is a big plane. And maybe we can make it even smaller. So basically 1 is the default size, and below 1 it's smaller, above 1 gets even bigger. So this is it doesn't fit even in the canvas. So let's place, initially was 0.5, we'll try a 0.3 at these coordinates, and we have a smaller plane. 0.5 was quite decent for us, and it was in the middle of the screen here. Now, let's go back here and go in the backgrounds tab. And we saw before the colors tab, and we saw that with the colors we can basically drag and drop a color. So perhaps we can draw a sky color, perhaps this light blue or sky blue. We can drag and drop it in the code. We saw this technique last time with the background for colors. And yes, we have the plane on a blue sunny sky, but we have also in here, if we look closely, we have also these backgrounds that are actually images. And again, these are also built-in assets. You don't have to upload them. You don't have to search on internet for other assets. In this environment, we are just focusing on the code, and this is so great because the environment comes with built-in assets. We'll spend all our time just coding. So let's try another asset here. So perhaps this one. Notice it's same background but has a string here, and I'm gonna tell you the environment makes the difference. So if this name here matches a built-in color, it will just color the background in that color. If not, we'll look if there is a built-in image with this name. And basically we don't need the first one. We'll remove it. So let's try to run it now. See? We have a plane in the sky. Perhaps we should put it a little bit upper, maybe even at 100. Yeah, it's flying really, really high. And the engine is still running, but the plane is just sitting in mid-air. This is normal because we have to do a little bit of coding if we want to move the plane, but that's beyond the scope of today's exercise. Well, I'm gonna show you one more thing here, a cool asset as well. Perhaps we should add a little bit of a music piece to this masterpiece that we created in 2 lines of code. So if we switch to the music palette here, we can see the built-in music tunes, and as I mentioned here, there are sound effects, but we'll just use music. And we can preview the music by clicking on the icon here. I like this one. Sounds like a cool retro music theme. Perhaps I should place it here. It doesn't matter. So let's look again at the code. 3 lines of code. First one sets the background. Second one sets the background music. And third one places a sprite on the screen. Let's run the program and see again the final effect. Ta-da! Perhaps we should start creating a game. Right now we can think of how can we further develop this particular program. Perhaps we should make the fly fly and then try to go and go on the ground there. Who knows? We can do so many things with this one. Let's stop the program for now and stop also this music. And let's maybe name this one Simple Plain. Or just plain. Like that. Actually, you know what? We don't have to save it. I'll save it anyway, because this program was created just to drag and drop. And I just change a little bit here the coordinate. But this is you can redo this program at any time if you want. Okay? Let's try another one. We'll go back here to main screen and click Code Now again. And let's attempt creating this time something more interesting. And I'm thinking perhaps we should, because we don't have yet the coding elements to help us create a full game, perhaps we should just create a static scene such as a greeting card. Yes, let's create a greeting card with code, with animated sprites, a nice background, and maybe we'll place also nice text on top of it. All right, sounds cool? So let's do that. And I like Christmas, so I like many holidays. I like Christmas as well. I like Christmas a lot. So let's pick a wintry theme. And Christmas was just a couple of months just ended. It's not Christmas now here, but you, the viewer from the future, you may watch it maybe close to Christmas and you may find actually useful this video. So let's try this background. Okay, looks maybe it's a North Pole somewhere. And let's switch now to the sprites palette and pick Santa from here. And let's run it. All right, we have Santa and looks quite in the right position. Perhaps we should move it a little bit to the left and a little bit down here. So let's try to do that. All right, let's make this screen bigger. So a little bit left to the left here should be 300 perhaps, and a little bit down 320. Yeah. It looks like it sits on this iceberg here. Maybe even a little bit to the left, 250. All right, and maybe you should place now some 2 texts here saying Merry Christmas. That will be cool, right? So let's, if we remember from last time, let me pick my notebook here really quick. Actually, the command is text, if we remember it. And we have to specify the text and specify the coordinates where that text will appear. And that's how you basically do the display of a text on the screen. And I just prepared the notebook, but we can write it directly in the code. So let's try to write text. and write here Merry Christmas. And where is that text? Oh, you know what? We didn't specify where we want to appear, so let's put some coordinates. So somewhere around to the right and maybe in the middle of the screen on the vertical. Here it is! But the text is so small, and it's, well, maybe we want to write it in red. Well, we know that we can use the fill command, and fill is also applicable to text, like is applicable to shapes such as ellipses and rectangles. So let's try this one. Yes, it looks quite all right, but I think it still has a little bit of a margin on the side. So let's try to control the stroke as well and say no stroke. I hope you still remember the fill and no stroke commands. So if we run them, yes, looks pretty clean. But you know what? We want the text bigger. And here I'm gonna actually grab my notebook, because this command we didn't specify it last time. If you remember the commands about setting attributes for shapes. Oh, and we can see here the no fill, we can see the no stroke, or we can see the fill, but we didn't see any command for specifying the size of a text. And actually there is a command for that. There is text size. Lowercase text, uppercase s, and size. And here it takes a number, so is the size of the font that we're gonna use. So something like that, text size. So I just added the command to the toolbox of commands for setting attributes to our shapes and text. So let's try this command and see how it behaves. All right, so as with the other commands for setting attributes, we have to run it before the actual command that draws the shape or text in this case. So here seems like a good place. Text size, and perhaps we should try 20. Run it. Yeah, it's bigger. Let's try even a bigger text, maybe 60. Wow. Actually, the size, I like this size, it's pretty good, but maybe we should write on 2 lines, Merry Christmas on the other line. So maybe I should just copy this line, just leave Merry here, and then leave Christmas on the other one. And this one should be a little bit down, and maybe a little bit to the left. Let's see. Oh, actually Merry should be a little bit up, right? And Christmas should be down, so the numbers go down like that. So it's 500, and this one should start at 400. Ooh. It's not good. So maybe too much. 350 here. We're getting there. So we are trying to guess these numbers. We didn't draw them on a grid paper, but you know, we are getting there. And maybe you should put Merry a little bit to the left, or yes, Merry to the left. So instead of 500, maybe at 450. Yes, I think it's all right. But let's put both of them, you know, towards the top of the screen. So we'll just subtract 100 for both. Yeah, and looks quite all right. Now you can also add the year here. We're already in 2021 now. And, you know, let's add the year. You may decide to customize this greeting card and use it for this year, 2022. Okay. So it's still in 2022. The Christmas is still far away, but you know, we are working on our greeting card for Christmas. So here perhaps we should have 450, align it with Merry, or maybe even 460, and here 25. Let's see. No, here maybe 330, 45. Yeah, kind of that. Maybe a little bit to the right, 475 here. All right. Looks quite good. So we have an animated greeting card. Well, as you can see, the Santa is animated. And let's see if we can pick any music for this one. No. Okay, let's pick happy. So we're gonna drag and drop happy here. Of course, feel free to browse there and pick any other music theme that you like. I'm not sure if there is a one for Christmas, but there's ways to add those, but that's a more advanced topic. So anyway, let's pick this one. I think it's a nice greeting card. And with, okay, so this one is a greeting card. So this is, yeah, Christmas greeting card. And now we can save it, and since it's a greeting card, we can share it with our friends. So here we can hit share, and we can copy this link, and if we decide, we can also copy it without the source code and, you know, send it via email to somebody, to some person that we want to send them a greeting card. And if that person is a coder, even better, they can inspect the source code and perhaps extend even further the greeting card. So let's put here, I'm gonna add the link to the chat. So click on the link there and feel free to customize it. And as you can see, this program we just created to drag and drop and a few, very few customizations. And we also learned about other commands such as the text size command here. All right, one more thing. Let's play one more time with these shapes, with these sprites, and then we're gonna talk a little bit more about why combining sprites with graphic elements works. Because if you paid attention, here we combine the sprite with the text, and these two kind of different families of elements, but you know, it's just working beautifully. So let's create another small program. Code now. We're gonna pick a shape. Sorry, a sprite. Let's pick as a sprite perhaps this dino. Let's run the program. Okay, that's a nice dino. And okay, it's also a good time to talk about the other animations that are basically supported by sprites. If we hover the mouse here, we can see that dino says dino idle, walk, run, jump, and dead. When we're gonna develop games into the future, we'll have to programmatically switch between animations. Probably idle is when the dino just sits, and then walk when we use the keyboard just to move the dino on the screen, we can switch it to that state. Running the same, and then jumping and things like that nature. For now, we just noticed the list here which says idle, walk, run, jump. So what we're gonna do, we don't type in that code that was displaying the snippet, but actually just go inside this string, and instead of idle, we're gonna try to type one of the other animations that were displayed there, such as walk. All right, see? We have this particular sprite animated on the canvas. And let's try another one. Run. Okay, for now we'll just it's too agitated, so let's leave it on idle. Okay, it still moves. We have a subtle animation here, and let's try to put a circle around this dino. So we can use circle 400, 300. We're gonna use the same coordinates where the dino is, and maybe the radius should be 200. All right, let's make the radius a little bit smaller. Okay, so as you can see, we have the dino, we have the circle. You know what, why not? Let's place as also background. Perhaps let's take it from this palette of patterns. Which one? Maybe this one. Or green pool. Dino is green, everything is green. Green everywhere. Alright, so we can see that we have the circle on top of the background, but the circle is behind the actual sprite. And actually, this is quite interesting, because in CodeGuppy we can control where we want to draw the shapes, like circles, text. We can draw them behind the sprites or above the sprites. And I'm gonna put on the screen an image to show you the drawing architecture in this environment. And this, I found this one in the documentation of the CodeGuppy.com environment. I extracted and put it here, but you can, if you just browse the documentation, you'll find it as well and also read more details there. But as you can see, we have the background layer is basically at the base of the stack. And on top of them comes sprites, says here with depth less or equal than 0. Then we have the drawing layers, and then we have sprites with depth greater than 0. So for now, we won't look into how we basically set the depth of the sprites, but it's just, you know, we'll just keep in mind that it's possible to make the sprites go behind the shapes or above the shapes. And on top of that, we can even place HTML widgets. And one of those kind of widgets we're gonna see in a future lecture is when we're gonna basically display text on top of images. All right, a different text than the one displayed with the text command. Okay, so this is a fun little program, but you know, I'm not sure if it's worth saving it. I'm gonna save it on my side, but you know, for you, I'm not putting in the chat. Feel free to just recreate it by drag and dropping, you know, a dino or any other sprite in there, place a background, and then create a shape and see if the shape goes behind or above the sprite. Okay, so I think we should keep this lesson short. We accomplished what we wanted to see here. So basically we wanted to explore a little bit the included assets. What is important to remember is that in CodeGuppy.com we have built-in assets that if we want to focus on the coding, we don't have to look up on internet for assets, but still we can build nice looking programs with sprites, interesting backgrounds, and we already saw that we can also draw shapes with just the built-in assets from the environment. And then there is a technique for advanced users just to use external sprites and even create custom sprites like retro looking sprites. And we'll talk about those in a future lesson when we're gonna come back on sprites and see how to use them in video games. For now, I'm just saying thanks for watching and happy coding. See you next time.